Welcome to the History of North America. I'm Mark Vinette. Do modern historians of North America owe a debt of gratitude to Herodotus, widely credited as being the first historian? Herodotus traveled widely in the ancient Greek world and wrote down what he saw and the stories he heard. He coined the word history, which is Greek for inquiries. Let's join Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World podcast to hear how he describes the father of history.
The Greek historian Herodotus, he lived in the 5th century BC. He was born around 484 BC, and he died around 425 BC when he would have been about 60 years old. He was from the Greek city of Halicarnassus, which is now the modern port city of Bodrum in southwestern Turkey. The name Halicarnassus may sound familiar because about a century after Herodotus's time, they built the famous mausoleum of Halicarnassus there, and in antiquity, it was named one of the 7 wonders of the world. Unfortunately, the mausoleum of Halicarnassus no longer exists. Of the 7 wonders of the world, only the Great Pyramid of Giza still exists, but the mausoleum left a lasting legacy. In addition to its fame as one of the 7 wonders, it also gave us the word mausoleum. In antiquity, it was known as the tomb of Mausolus, after the guy who was buried there. Mausolus was a ruler in the Achaemenid Empire, and after he died, he was buried above the ground in a massive tomb. So the tomb of Mausolus came to be known as the mausoleum, and today the word mausoleum continues to refer to tombs that are built above the ground. Herodotus is famous as a historian and a geographer. In fact, he's referred to as the father of history. The title was bestowed on him by the 1st century Roman orator and letter writer Cicero. This is because Herodotus had written a book called Historiae in Greek. It was written around 430 BC when Herodotus was around 55 years old. In Greek, the word historia originally meant inquiry, and later it meant story or account. So you could translate historiae as inquiries, accounts, or stories, but we just bring it directly into English as histories. Herodotus's book became a template for later kinds of writing. Other people started doing similar works, and so Herodotus is known as the father of history. Among other things, Herodotus covered the rise of the Persian Empire and how it had conquered Herodotus's own Greek ancestors a century earlier. But it's based on information that he collected from a lot of different places. Herodotus traveled extensively, and he asked questions wherever he went. So he has a reputation among historians as a kind of inquisitive, highly engaged tourist who wanted to learn about wherever he went. And he both records and distinguishes what he saw with his own eyes from what he was told by local people. He begins the histories this way.
Here are the results of the inquiry carried out by Herodotus of Halicarnassus. The purpose is to prevent the traces of human events from being erased by time, and to preserve the fame of the important and remarkable achievements produced by both Greeks and non-Greeks. Among the matters covered is, in particular, the cause of the hostilities between Greeks and non-Greeks.
Despite the fact that he's known as the father of history, not everybody has been a fan of Herodotus. The accuracy of the histories has been challenged, and some have even referred to Herodotus rather ominously as the father of lies. In addition to modern critics, some of his critics were in the ancient world, like the comic playwright Aristophanes of Athens, who mocked him in his plays, and the Athenian historian Thucydides, who dismissed him as a storyteller. But Herodotus apparently honestly reported what he saw and what he had been told. He didn't always believe what he was told, but he still reported it, and he left it up to his readers to make up their own minds. Part of the reason that some critics may have dismissed Herodotus is that in the ancient world, travel was very difficult, so it was difficult to investigate and verify things, and people might just dismiss things that they read in Herodotus because they couldn't check them out. But as science, including history and archaeology, has been progressing, more and more of what Herodotus said has turned out to be true, and his reputation has been increasing. Some of my favorite scholars are big fans of Herodotus, like Dr. Bob Breyer, the Egyptologist. He's a big fan of Herodotus and treats him with respect. Another is the historian Adrian Mayer, who says this about him.
My favorite ancient writer is Herodotus, the insatiably curious Greek historian from Persian-ruled Halicarnassus, Bodrum, Turkey. Journeying to exotic lands to see the sights, he interviewed non-Greek-speaking peoples about their history and customs, and captivated the Greeks with his histories, written about 460 BC. Herodotus reported what he observed and what locals told him, including contradictory information, and often reserved judgment about veracity, leaving it up to his readers to ponder.
To my mind, the fact that Herodotus recorded strange claims, investigated them to the extent he could, and ultimately left it up to his audience to decide what they thought, kind of makes Herodotus my patron historian. So I like him a lot. He's my kind of guy in those respects. We'll have more to say about the geographical location that Herodotus is describing, but I should point out that while modern Egypt and modern Saudi Arabia don't exactly share a border, they're separated by the Gulf of Aqaba, which branches off from the Red Sea. In the ancient world, they didn't have modern borders, though, and the region of Arabia was envisioned as coming right up to Egypt. Here, Herodotus is engaging in a little biology or zoology in keeping with the scientific ideas of his day, or rather the ideas of natural philosophy, as science was then called. But the science of our day is somewhat better. Herodotus is correct that prey animals are typically born in much larger numbers than predators are. Prey animals like rabbits can't really defend themselves, and so lots and lots of them need to be born for their species to survive, since many of the offspring will end up becoming a lunch. On the other hand, predators like lions can defend themselves, so not as many of them need to be born for their species to survive. Furthermore, you don't really want tons of predators to be born because if there were too many, they would run out of lunches and starve. So he's right about that. Aristotle proposed that hares can become pregnant while they are pregnant. And he was right. Biologists have recently confirmed that hares can acquire a new pregnancy while one pregnancy is already in progress. However, what's inaccurate in what Herodotus says is the idea that lionesses only have a single cub during their lifetimes. Actually, lionesses can have between 8 and 18 cubs over a lifetime, and about half of them will survive in the wild. Still, not bad sciencing for 2,400 years ago. Herodotus refers to two behaviors that are observed in some species in zoology. The first is when two animals are mating and one kills the other. Usually it's the female that kills the male because the female needs to survive to lay the eggs or gestate the young. And they don't typically just kill the males and leave them alone. They typically cannibalize them to get nutrients. This behavior is observed in a wide variety of lesser animals, including insects, arachnids, and even some crabs. It occurs, for example, in the insect species known as the Chinese mantis, and it's famously reported as occurring in black widow spiders. In fact, that seems to be why they're called black widows, because they're black and they eat their mates and thus make themselves widows. However, the prevalence of this behavior in black widows appears to be somewhat exaggerated. A lot of the tests done to confirm it were done in cages where, after mating, the male spider had no way of escaping. And it may not have been that the female was deliberately eating her mate. She may have just been eating any creature that was available, and the male couldn't escape, and so she ate him. But the behavior does occur in spiders, including in black widows, and Herodotus says it occurs in flying snakes. So maybe, just like dinosaur bones are apparently the basis of dragon legends in multiple cultures, maybe fossils were the large collection of bones that Herodotus was shown, and they were the basis of the accounts of flying snakes. The expedition that mentions them occurs during the reign of the ruler of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. So he was both the king of Assyria and the king of Babylon, which had been conquered by Assyria at this point. We have widespread accounts of flying snakes living in the general area of Egypt, the Israeli desert, and Arabia, and these accounts span centuries. We have Egyptian art of flying snakes that go back crazy far in history. In the 700s BC, we have Isaiah alluding to them being in the desert between Egypt and Israel, though it isn't clear that he means they literally exist. In the 600 BCs, we have Esarhaddon mentioning seeing them, In the 400 BCs, we have Herodotus mentioning the tales about them and also saying that he saw their bones. And we have multiple later writers mentioning them as well. Also, there may have been deliberate exaggeration on the part of some of Herodotus's informants, such as Arab frankincense traders who wanted to keep the sources of the valuable substance to themselves and decided to keep outsiders at bay by telling them stories about dangerous flying snakes in the frankincense trees. Herodotus's book became a template for later kinds of writing, and so Herodotus is known as the father of history.
I'm Mark Vinette, and I hope you're enjoying the ride.